Welcome, listeners, to the triumphant rebirth of our celebrated Beltway Insider Series. I'm Chris Wade, a.k.a. Lil Smoot Hawley, here with Matt Chrisman, a.k.a. Taft Hartley, a.k.a. The Big Magician. What's up, Matt?
Hey, happy to be back. Very excited.
And just as we're getting started here, because there's been some controversy on the subject that's never been officially addressed on the show, I would just like to say regarding one of the previous hosts of this ongoing series, he was unfortunately eaten by an alligator in the Louisiana bayou while on assignment reporting a now-canceled 12-part investigative podcast miniseries called Tough as Clay, the Clay Higgins story.
Oh, R.I.P. to everyone, mon ami.
But it is a midterms year. So after Matt and Mai's, I'll just call it magisterial recounting of the entirety of U.S. presidential history last year, we figured we'd team up again to give a deep dive update into the current state of electoral politics here in America. This is the rebirth, the Beltway Phoenix. Hop on and fly away with us. Destination, the midterms of madness.
Beltway Phoenix, rising from the earth. Beltway Phoenix, noted for his girth. Beltway Phoenix, going election mode. Beltway Phoenix, find out what the future holds. Beltway Phoenix.
Of course, here on this program, we believe two things about electoral politics. First, that it's nothing but a cheap bauble offered by the bourgeois ruling class to distract the proletariat from the urgent need for revolutionary overthrow of the capitalist yoke. And two, polls, baby. Love me some polls. Love me data. Love me quantifiable voter demographic information. Simple as. But before we get into that, we have with us an expert in the field of voter psychology, voter physiognomy, voter phrenology, not a mere journalist, a simple slinger of articles, but a goddamn reporter. So put some respect on his name. It's friend of the show, Dave Weigel. What's up, Dave?
Hey, I'm Mr. Midterm. I walk around with a medallion that says 36% voter turnout on it. Solid gold. So I'm ready to do this. I know way too much about midterms.
It's been a minute since you've been on the show, Dave, and I do just want to say that I was incredibly impressed that you never for a minute stopped reporting all through COVID on the ground, through the 2020 election, and now deep into midterm season. So
this does raise the question, how many times have you had COVID now?
I've had COVID no times, which is still incredible.
Okay, so that means that it's either not real or for some reason the deep state gave you, maybe without your knowledge, the actual cure.
Yeah, I don't like when stuff like that happens because there's a lot of conspiracy theories about big media outlets owned by wealthy people. And if word got out about the booster shots that we and only we get, it probably wouldn't be cool. But I have no idea. I really think I'm, in addition to whatever else I do, really simple-minded about health and medicine. And my theory is if I just take zinc and vitamin C when I feel bad, I'll be okay. I don't know when I learned this, just like a witch taught it to me when I was a teenager. That's all I do. And I have not been sick yet. And I have shaken so many hands. Remember that week when people were thinking, oh, we'll never shake hands again? So many hands just mingling with mine, sweat on sweat. Flesh on flesh. I've been fine. And don't read this as like a medical statement on anything. But yes, I've been going places and like we'll get into this. Like the idea that the people who are saying, how are you still allowed to go out when there's a pandemic going on? Not many of those people right now, once you get off Twitter. Everyone's doing things.
Yeah.
Okay, you hear that, people? Throw away your horse paste. Pick up your zinc. That's how you do it.
I'm just imagining, your editors, giving one of those automated needle injections to the neck as they push you out for the halo jump into a diner in suburban Topeka.
There was a whole period. Oh, sorry. There's a whole period where the only way you could get into the office was to get PPE if you were going on a trip. So I remember going and picking up some masks and some sanitizer on the way to Tulsa, where Trump had that rally that like half
that killed Herman Cain.
That's right. I was there for that. But yeah, people have mellowed, and it's still, I would say Republicans are 100% back to normal, have been forever. Democrats still, I'll call and say, hey, I'm going to come out. What should I see? And they'll say, well, we're doing a Zoom meeting. We're doing a Zoom debate, and I don't judge them, but Republicans are having more fun. I'm comfortable saying that. Republicans are back doing things. Democrats still feel weird about doing things.
Well, that is the basic pitch of the Republican Party now. Go wild, have fun. But along those lines, I mentioned earlier that we were all about polls here on the Beltway Phoenix, and we will get into that. But what I wanted to get from you, Dave, right up top, and we're already into it a little bit, is the vibe. What is the vibe of the American voter right now? And to start off, I want to quote a tweet or an image from MSNBC that I saw pictured on Twitter from @GoodPoliticsGuy, an MSNBC screenshot saying, in all caps, midterms issues for Democrats were, quote, censoring conservative voices on social media, quote, college campuses becoming liberal echo chambers, quote, the push to be politically correct, and, quote, canceling historical figures. Are these the kitchen table issues on the road right now?
Not all of that, really. This is one thing you get from going around the country is that do you meet people who are obsessed with stuff that maybe doesn't affect their material concerns, like obviously all the time. But that goes both ways. There's, very wealthy people whose kids are going to private school who love Ibram Kendi, and there's very wealthy, hot tub salesmen who are terrified of something being canceled that hasn't been canceled. That happens. But it has all been about, one, stuff costs more, two, the president's pretty old. I'm not sure I'm speaking the voice of the American voter. I'm not sure this old guy can handle it. It's basically like a theme of the election when I boil down what I find, which is after, to make the whole thing about Afghanistan. After Afghanistan, people looked at Biden, and whether or not they agreed with what happened, the decision to get out, most people agree with that. They thought, I'm not sure if this guy is on the ball in a crisis, and that has just kind of run through everything.
I don't understand the living skeleton man who is trapped in a prison of nostalgia and 50-year-old memories, who can't seem to indicate any awareness of his surroundings at any given moment. He doesn't inspire confidence.
Who is increasingly taken to shaking hands with ghosts after speeches.
Oh, I saw that video. I think he was doing the politician thing where you go like, oh, you're putting your hands out. But he does. They don't. There's no one in the White House who says, let's say I'm a big guy. If somebody's giving me a speech from me, I'd say, hey, don't have me wear a white bodysuit because I wouldn't look as good as I might look in like a good clean cut. And there's no one in the White House who's like, hey, there are a lot of memes out there about the president being old and out of it. We should minimize the times when he looks old and out of it. That doesn't really happen because some of this is unfair, but they also just kind of let him roll. And I don't think letting him roll is the way to go. With his, he's still like the whole dementia thing. I've met people with dementia. I don't think he's one of them. I think he's an old guy, which is a legit thing. We know lots of them. They're not all that they used to be. I feel like that shouldn't be that controversial of a take. Certainly, it isn't here.
What's so wild is how that his energy and his presence is matched by, at least according to what you read in the papers from people who get inside sources, matched by his administration, the lack of urgency, right? Like that's what people around the party, like in the legislature and stuff, keep saying, right? It's like they're yelling at these people at the White House about what's going on and how things are being perceived, and they're just not doing anything, which is the very opposite of the O'Bungler era, where they were like febrile, fast twitch muscles going crazy. Like every news cycle, they were there with something, and they were just tacking to public opinion frantically all through those 8 years. Whereas they seem to just have, I don't know, like that WikiHow drawing, accept your death, or you're looking at the plant. Seems like that's everyone in the White House.
And Democrats running for Congress, like you get talking to them, and you can always tell when somebody's saying something because they'd rather say something else, but they can't. And that's why I mentioned Biden, but also when they talk about their agenda not passing, they just can't keep saying. It'd be much easier if Joe Manchin let us pass this bill so we could go back and say, remember that stuff we did it, and they haven't. So I'm very minimalist when I come to the midterms. I don't think it's bending that much based on one piece of news or another. I think you even see news cycles, right, that are one poll shows Biden up a little. Is this going to help him? There's a Supreme Court nominee. Is this going to help him? I know it's just that they ran on a lot of stuff, and I think their base, Democratic base, the coalition they built, which is a very weird coalition, notices more if something doesn't happen. And I'm not trying to be demeaning to conservatives, but the conservatives, when they're in power, demand a lot of stuff that's pretty easy to do. Like, hey, I put a commission together, and we're going to teach John Tremaine in school again instead of how to be anti-racist. Like that was just Trump signed something with a pen. They're like, that's amazing. Whereas Democrats are like, hey, we were getting a great tax credit. Where is it? And Democrats are like, you should be worried about January 6th. And I feel like that doesn't work. Just their voters need when they're in power to have resources redistributed to them. That's why they voted for him. And when that doesn't happen, things get crazy. Although it keeps happening, doesn't it? This is the third time in a row this has happened.
Mm-hmm. So on the Democratic voter side, I mean, we're seeing a lot in the last few weeks about the just horrible portents of the collapsing Biden approval rating, even among potential voters, among likely voters. On the Democratic side, are you hearing a lot of people who would be traditional Democratic voters who their skepticism, their disappointment, their lack of feeling fulfilled by the Biden administration affecting being the number one principle that they're voting on this year?
They're actually more engaged than you'd think when you lay it out like that, or even the way I was talking about it. So one thing that happened, I mean, their electorate got more college educated, more PMC, less white working class. A problem for them has always been, oh gosh, our white working class voters just the ones we have left don't vote in midterms if they're unhappy, and we don't have anyone else to make up for it. They do now. They have. Well, I mean, the education gap is nuts. Go back and look at polling when Obama was running. There was no education gap. It's like 30 points now. Those voters do vote. So you look at something like Virginia, where the last 2 months of that campaign are garbage time, where Democrats can't do anything right. And they only lose by 2.5 points. And that's a state where they lost under Obama by 20. So, and if you look at the map, it's like, well, all right, we're getting destroyed everywhere that has like a Sheetz no, really, like those kind of places everywhere where like the gas station there's a
where you can get a hoagie at the gas station,
where there's a memorial, there's something that got turned into an Instagram experience that used to employ people, all the things that make up rural America, worse than ever, but they still have those suburbs. And if you talk to Republicans, they're like, well, that will mitigate some of these losses. Like we're not going to, maybe we can't flip Portland anymore. Or, Bush could compete in some suburbs that we're so hated because of Trump that we're not going to, and this is Republicans, but we don't need to. So I think the Democrats have more money and more excitement than they did other times when they've been in really bad shape. It's all relative. Like this time, 2010, even though the president was more popular, just their voters did not care. We're not going to show up, and we're not giving money.
Well, then I would like to turn to the flip side, which is the vibe among the Republican voters, and I guess along the lines of what you were just saying, I guess the conventional wisdom, especially if you're just scrolling Twitter, is that the Democrats are going to get creamed in the midterms, just based, again, as I was saying earlier, and you kind of put some nuance on of the Biden polling numbers. But is this going as well for the GOP as it might seem at first glance? One thing that I saw that I thought was interesting were the results from recent elections in Wisconsin about school boards, where a lot of these people running on real hardcore GOP school board censorship, anti-LGBT shit, did not quite go as well as they thought. This is from the Wisconsin Examiner. In Eau Claire, all three board candidates who ran on anti-LGBT platforms lost to the incumbents and their allies. The three conservative candidates stoked controversy about a teacher training program they claimed excluded parents from conversations about their child's gender and identity and sexual orientation. This became a topic on Fox News. They all lost. Similar results in Beloit, La Crosse, even I think in Green Bay. So are these issues that the GOP is trying to make a cornerstone, the things that I referenced from that MSNBC tweet earlier, are they playing as well as they could be, or the GOP wants them to?
I'm glad you brought up Wisconsin, because they have underperformed in some of those places where the trends are going their way. Their big coup in Wisconsin that day was they won the Kenosha executive, which was Kenosha. There has been a backlash to the riot there in 2020. They pulled that off, and they won this judicial seat, which it's just drawn to be pretty Republican. So they won that. But you're right, it was pretty mixed. I'd say probably 6 months ago or before Afghanistan, I was more bullish on Democrats having an okay midterm, just because all these things we're talking about now, they're not really actionable. They're not a thing. Like no member of Congress, no Democratic member of Congress is coming home and saying, "I'm going to teach your kids. I'm going to put all these explicit books in school because I know it freaks you out." They're not really doing it. So you had conservative activism focused on stuff that the real hardcore ideologues were interested in. And that's still the case. And that's not where most voters are. It's just that voters can be convinced, if something's happening that's so crazy that nothing works anymore. So the school's less good than it used to be, and the dollar's worth less than it used to. It needs to be connected to something. Mm-hmm. There aren't really people turning out and saying, I used to be a Democrat, but I'm so angry that a teacher who's gay had a TikTok saying she was gay. That stuff does feel like people who, like Chris Rufo and some other people who had incredible success in the anti-CRT thing, are kind of trying to get into a side gig and make it about that. I don't think that's clicked quite as much yet. It's all the other stuff. I mean, if that was happening in a environment where the economy was like what it was in summer 2019, I don't know if it would be connecting the same way, because everybody, as soon as anybody wins anything, they're like, well, that's what did it. All of my pet issue is the reason that we won this thing. Like Virginia's another good example. You go back and look at the data. It wasn't that a bunch of parents were so angry that they switched over. The electorate was just a lot more white and rural than it usually is. Those guys who vote for Trump and nobody else could be convinced to vote for Youngkin. That's the moment news cycles change. What would really scare the Democrats I cover is thinking, oh, well, we have a better electorate that we used to, that turns out, but they have an even better one, and their one is motivated on stuff we're not doing. Like, no, they're going home and saying, here's the money I brought back for the bridge, and the question that like the Fox News viewer is getting is like, what are you doing about the pedo tunnels under Disney? Which is a literal thing people have brought up to me when I've been talking to them. And so that's where it's so confusing them. It's like the Republicans are chasing something that's probably not where most people's heads are at, but they're angry enough about another stuff that they're willing to go along with it. And then they say, the lesson of this is we're the school book restricting movement right now. Yeah, and could you think of a better issue to like motivate that PMC person at home who doesn't have that much skin in the game? Like the idea that the school somewhere is going to ban Toni Morrison. I mean, it is. There's a lot of these issues where Democrats are just kind of trapped in a room with Republicans, and they want to win the argument. It's not clear that anyone cares. Anyone who could be persuaded cares. The people who are persuaded were like, "Could you shut up and make it so that like I have a child tax credit again?"
Do you have any takes on that, Matt?
Well, that raises the interesting question. So the Republicans are, as the losing party for the last election and midterm usually are, more motivated. Mm-hmm. The economic headwinds, as they like to say, are pushing against the incumbents. But the other big thing that's suggestive of a wipeout is this huge collapse in Biden's approval among younger people. Mm-hmm. This possibility of just a massive, not switch to Republicans, but rather just a decision to stay home. And the question is, does the fact that the Republicans plan for keeping their base whipped up involve pressing all of the most sensitive culture war buttons that young people do, the young Democrats anyway, are committed to? Will that be enough to get them to overcome their disappointment and resentment of Brandon and the Democrats, and to imagine that there are stakes enough to vote in the midterm? And I don't know. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
The Republicans do love overplaying their hands.
Oh, yeah, and they think that they're winning. I mean, a lot of the trans politics is, it's not that they think we found a great thing on the floor and we're upset. It's that they think we can, if we freak people out about everyone becoming low T and transgender, then we're going to get a lot of votes. That's the thought behind it. But you're right. That's not really where everybody's head is at the moment. I do think that helps a lot of people I'm talking about motivate themselves to turn out like, Biden's not on the ballot. I don't want these people to win. I mean, that was the whole McAuliffe campaign at the end, was, do you really want these people to win? And it failed, but it failed, again, less miserably than what they've done in the past. So
I point towards what Felix said a couple episodes ago. They lose the House and Senate for no other reason than they don't really have any leeway there. So they're likely to lose the Senate and the House if there's any partisan Republican edge to the electorate, or to the outcome anyway. But that won't be a complete annihilation. And would you think that would you say, I don't like to do predictions, but I'm happy to ask you to do predictions right now. Does it feel to you more like a wipeout is coming, or a more middle of the bell curve, sort of pro opposition party midterm?
I think it would be a wipeout if Republicans got out of their way, and in some places they are. I mean, I feel that there's stuff that went Democratic by 10, 15 points that will be in play just because of enough voters are switching over, and which kind of voters are they? So if there's a district that's like there's one, Colorado 7th district. Watch this flip, and I look stupid. But that one's just like everyone there has a college degree, basically. And Republicans are saying we're going to compete for it, but it's really tough. And then there are seats where, like in Nevada, where the electorate is Hispanic and white voters without college degrees, and those groups are both like done with this. So I feel like there's going to be potential wipeouts in places that were drawn to be safe for Democrats because of who is voting. I hate using let's not do this. Let's not do the weasel thing where it's like, well, if it was held today. I just feel like that trend has been happening for a year. So if the people who, if the electorate looks like 2014, that was a really small one, even they'd be losing differently than they would lose this under this electorate. There's a lot of people who were fine with voting Democratic until like 6 months ago, but they live in different kinds of places. I mean, even this Florida electoral map that they're trying to finish up is getting attention because the rest of the redistricting was not that great for Republicans. A combination of lawsuits and just there's so many suburbanites who don't want to vote Republican that there's not that much more they can gain. Like if you push them, they're like, yeah, on the current map, there's maybe 15 seats we should be able to flip. But if things get really crazy, we're going to be competing for, the deep blue place that, nobody had bothered spending money in that moved 30 points toward Biden. They think those could be in play because the Biden coalition is weird. I said that before. It's probably a better word. It is like everyone from most DSA members to Bill Kristol. And they want different stuff. Like it is really like, I'm going to suck it down and vote for. And a lot of those people are, I'm going to suck it up and vote for Joe Biden, who I don't love. There are people who he's more liked than Hillary Clinton was for lots of reasons. But there are a lot of voters who were like, I voted for him to get Trump out. Things are still bad. I'm tuning out everything, and maybe I'll tune back in and vote Democratic because if I see that Stephen Colbert that night and he scares me, maybe I'll vote. Not a very edifying election. That's where I see people talking.
It also strikes me when there's, when people are writing a lot about this kind of historic collapse of young people's enthusiasm in the Democratic coalition, how much that suck it up and vote for me was the explicit pitch of the Biden campaign of being like, basically like, you don't like me, I don't like you, but everybody has to get in the van to do this one thing. And now the one thing's done. And I mean, that was the statement from the beginning. So it's like, it shouldn't.
Their argument. Like, it is very funny watching people get mad at the young people for checking out because, like, what Biden's explicit pitch to people was, "I am the status quo. You will not get what you want, but that's okay because we have this bigger mission. But you know what? When the election's over, we'll discuss it.
Yeah.
Like we'll see. Your parents saying we'll see. Well, you got home and you found out what many kids do, that we'll see means no." We'll see always means no. They're just trying to shine you on. And so this is absolutely predictable. And if you do believe that Biden is constrained and can't do the things that these people want him to do, then getting mad at them for feeling that way to me is absolutely baffling. Because you're essentially asking them to just act like you're your parents, essentially. Like pretend you own a home.
Yeah.
But most, it's like, I'm sorry, I am who I am. I have student loan debt and I have, a precarious life situation. And there's these things that I imagine this guy could do. And this stuff that his predecessor was doing that they're now being cut off and we're being told, like, accept this. It's like, yes, if you are a secure Democrat, the people who really pushed Biden over, the people who didn't want to die of COVID, and so voted for Biden over Trump, for them, this is not a big deal. This is not a reason to not do your duty to vote for the Democrats. But they're young people. By definition, they vote less. They're supposed to care about politics less because they're supposed to be having fun.
We do have a bunch of individual races to go to get into, and there's a lot of real fun, goofy stuff to talk about there. But I wanted to hit one more thing in just the general vibe before we get there. We've been talking a lot about Biden, but I do want to touch on Trump's role in the whole midterm cosmology, because this is the first election in 6 years he's not either in office or on the ballot. And yet, as I'm putting together the dossier on all this, basically every Republican primary race is defined by proximity to Trump. So, Dave, at this point, what is the exiled Trump? What is his kind of role in all of this and in the Republican politics right now?
I mean, he's having a great time. You see all the photos of him hanging out with a very small buffet stand at Mar-a-Lago. That's always what surprises me. I would imagine like some kind of Vegas casino buffet, but whenever I see that buffet photo, it's him and maybe some eggs, ketchup for some reason. But he's hanging out Mar-a-Lago. Everybody comes to Jenny Fleck. I mean, this JD, we'll get into Ohio. This JD Vance endorsement, I thought was by the time it happened, it shouldn't have been that surprising. But I think even a few months ago. I mean, I went on air to cover Vance when Marjorie Greene endorsed him, and I thought, one, this makes sense. Two, what is better than having somebody that publicly denounced you and says they hate you, begging for your support? That sounds amazing. Who wouldn't want that? And so Trump has just not only popularity among Republicans, but Republicans really willing to supplicate themselves, and seeing just no other sure thing path to winning a campaign than getting him to endorse them. So he has complete control by choice. I mean, like one hinge point in history, I guess, is if Mitch McConnell had convinced, what was it taken, 9 Republican senators to just say, yeah, actually, what he did is so bad, he's banned from running for office again. He could have. We'd be in a different situation, but he didn't. And Trump or anything else, is people have unless you are a very weird person who is on Twitter all the time, a bad thing happens, and then like a month later, you're like, well, I'm not constantly thinking about that bad thing anymore. That's how you adjust and live. You're not like tweeting about trauma. And so Republicans who really did think January 6th was bad are like, you know what? But my voters don't think that, and it wasn't really that bad. And he's just in a great position where he doesn't have to apologize for anything. He has a rally the rallies have gotten like a little bit smaller from what I've seen. I haven't been to any in a while.
Yo, you'd better not be talking about the size of Trump rallies, Dave Weigel.
This is true. This is always
get the beam put on you again.
Yeah, he apparently talks about that in interviews sometimes. But anyway, no, the rallies are like, they're big. They're the biggest rallies anyone is having in the country. They're just like, I think he went to Selma, North Carolina, and he got more people than Biden gets when he goes to like Boston. That's just true. But so he's not like driving news cycles. He just drives news cycles inside the Republican Party. I cannot stress how much entire primary campaigns are just people talking about who loves Trump the most, and that is all that they talk about. Yeah.
Yes. Although we'll also get into this. His endorsement has not yet appeared to be the sort of golden ticket that everyone was really assuming.
Yeah.
Because there's been some of his, they haven't taken off, but we'll talk about that.
Well, let's get into it. For this episode, I think most of my focus is going to be on the Senate, simply because there are 435 House races. And Dave, you can maybe highlight some as they come up.
I'm going to rank them all. No.
But obviously in the Senate, an incredibly precarious time for the Dems. Kind of, you have to be lucky every time. We only have to be lucky once spot the Democrats find them in to keep their slim control of the Senate. There are 14 Democratic seats up this cycle, all in states Biden won. 21 Republican seats are up, and 2 of those are in Biden states, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. So we come down to a map that looks like GOP pickups possible in Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, maybe New Hampshire, and possible Democratic pickup spots in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, maybe North Carolina. So with that said, let's go to the states. Starting with Georgia, the peach state. Now let's dive right into whether or not this Trump endorsement is a golden ticket or not. For governor, we have Brian Kemp versus David Perdue in the GOP governor primary. Perdue had gotten the Trump endorsement, but is currently floundering. Kemp up currently almost 12 points to Perdue. Dave, any insight on the Georgia governor race?
Yeah.
Or Georgia in general?
I think a problem for Trump is Georgia. He has so many endorsements that people are kind of picking and choosing. And they're like, well, I'm going to vote for his guy for Senate, I'm going to vote for his guy for Secretary of State. For governor, I'm not sold yet. It's just it's easier to sell, streaming channels than a cable plan. Like you can make your choice. You're gonna and Kemp just really has not done anything apart from not literally overturn the election and pretend Trump won it. There is no rhino thing in Kemp's past. Even when Trump goes there and talks about it, he can't really articulate what Kemp did. It's just that he and others did not stop absentee ballots or let it be easier to cast absentee ballots and let ballots be dropped in drop boxes.
Well, also, didn't they ask him to literally just find votes for him in Georgia? Weren't they recorded?
They asked the Secretary of State to do that too. Yeah, it was. Can you just find 10,000 something? That was my colleague Amy Gardner's story, which is and that story is also one of those moments where we realize just you can't like stamp your feet and say, why don't people listen to reality? Because that story published, it has an audio of Donald Trump, and I have met people who were like, well, that story was made up.
Yeah. No,
they don't want it to be true.
They don't want to believe.
Yeah.
If you prove it to them, then it isn't what it was when they didn't believe it. There's nothing to be done.
Yeah, you guys, the media didn't write about the laptop. The ipso facto, nothing you say can be trusted. Yeah.
Yep. This does raise an interesting question, though, because the Achilles heel of a Trump rebound, to me, is that fixation on the election, to the ignorance of everything else, and making it like the only litmus test for support, other than making sure that you think they can win, because Trump doesn't want to back a loser, no matter what they believe, because that looks bad. That reflects badly on him. So here we have a case where he's trying to unseat a sitting governor using this guy's failure to help him out after the election as the sole reason for doing it. And even in Georgia, which has a strong Republican tilt electorally generally, even though it went to Biden, they're not sold on it. It's not enough for them to overthrow their governor. So that makes you wonder, how is that really possible? Is his fixation on that a chink in the armor big enough for somebody like, say, Ron DeSantis to sneak in?
I don't think so, because he's gonna. So I'm in the media, but the media loves the Trump endorsement story. It's interesting on its own. It's also just easy to track. You can get your scoreboard and say, okay, he's got a W here, he's got an X here. And so May begins with Ohio's primary, and if J.D. Vance wins that, I think that just the vibes from that will carry Trump quite a ways. I mean, he will not be able to stop talking about, I did that. Then a week later, you got West Virginia. There's a House race I've covered where he's endorsed a guy. Basically, that race, one guy voted for the infrastructure bill, and Trump retroactively is like, that's not fair. I wanted to pass that. So he endorsed the other guy. So I think he's going to have some momentum coming in, but there's no... and he will turn on Kemp. And one thing Trump did in the last month that I thought... I tried to be surprised, but I thought, no, you could do that, was Mo Brooks in Alabama was just kind of sucking wind in the primary, and Trump said, I'm endorsing him for reasons.
Right, yeah, because he doesn't want to back a loser.
Yeah, that's so he can pull that off. He can just say, well, I tried for Brian Kemp, but he's a loser, and I knew he was never going to win. I only did it as a favor. And the people at the MAGA rally are going to be like, you're right, sir. I mean,
that's a good point.
You cannot fail. You can only be failed. But yeah, Kemp looks like he's, totally. It's like, but Kemp has been in command just because he's been a really conservative governor, and there's no reason to dislike him apart from Trump telling you to. If you're Republican.
I mean, you kind of talked about this earlier, but I think one of the things about the Trump endorsements that makes them, maybe a little flimsier than they should be is that it's not a slate, it's not announced all at once, it's not coherent, it's all just about the personal peak of Trump. So you have to be like a Trump follower. You have to get your daily Trump updates to even know who he's talking about, or like, what is going on in his imaginarium to follow these endorsements. So, I find them not like clearly messaged. There's not like, he doesn't roll out and be like, in this state, these are my guys. It's basically like whenever somebody sucks up enough to get, their Trump suck up bar past, the whatever percentile, they then get the endorsement. And it's kind of, fickle, random, incoherent, basically.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And some of these endorsements, there's one in Michigan where he endorsed a guy on the old district lines, and the guy built his state rep running for Congress against a. Well, here I'll lay it out, because this explains, one, how Trump does it, and two, how he always wins anyway inside the party. So Michigan, there's a couple members of Congress who voted to impeach Trump. One of them, Fred Upton, is in there. Trump endorses a state rep against Upton, just saying, this guy is great. Upton is a traitor. Okay. That guy based his whole campaign around Trump, and Steve Carroll is his name. And then they have new districts. In the new district, there's a different guy running against Trump. So Trump endorses that guy, against Upton. Trump endorses the other guy running against Upton. The first guy he endorsed just quits because Trump told him to. And then Upton just retires because three of these I think he's the third of these guys who were like, I stood up to Trump when it mattered. Oh man, that was hard. And they just quit. So with very little effort, I mean, I think giving a speech, putting on a rally, that is effort. Other things cause effort. Just like sitting at your house and having people come to you and say, please, sir, please. That's pretty easy. So with very little effort, Trump is pushing people off the chessboard, getting the people he wanted. And a contrast with Democrats who don't quite know what they're doing. It's pretty incredible.
It really reminds you that one of the reasons that the Republicans are less of a just completely sclerotic gerontocracy is that these Congress people are lazy as shit. If you make them work at all as they get to a certain age, they'll just go home. It's like, fuck you. I'll be a fucking lobbyist and make 8 figures. I'm not going to fucking have to go back and campaign at my age and have to like worry about a primary. But yeah, a little pressure and these guys quit. But Democrats, they don't really get credible primary challengers that often, at least not until recently.
Yeah, except the leadership will stick around forever, but then there's a bunch of people this cycle just somebody raised money against them. They're like, oh no, man, really? And then they just retire because they're 70 something. They can be a senior fellow of whatever, or be on the board of Theranos too. Whatever it is you want to do if you're an ex-congressman.
Let's move on to the Senate campaign in Georgia. We have Raphael Warnock, who won the special election in 2020. Remember, his election, along with John Ossoff, was what was supposed to bring you those $2,000 checks immediately when they got to Senate. Don't know how that turned out. I assume good. Versus Herschel Walker, the 1982 Heisman Trophy winning running back for the New Jersey Generals, among other teams. Now he's a businessman claiming ownership for several businesses, some of which the Daily Beast recently reported don't actually exist. And he's also skipping the latest GOP primary debates, though he still remains the front runner in the GOP primaries. He's also faced with allegations of domestic abuse, for which he has discussed struggle with dissociative identity disorder.
He also has a gay conservative influencer son named Christian.
So obviously, I would say that the fame-meter favors Herschel Walker. He is, as of now, up 1.6 points over Warnock. The state went to Biden just barely in 2020. How do we think the Georgia Senate goes?
I mean, Walker has the advantage. There are Republicans who quietly think that, but what does quietly mean in politics? It's basically they'll tell a reporter, but then they'll tell you not to quote it. They do think that Walker is just so personally flawed that he's going to have problems. And Walker has run, he's kind of pulled the full Tommy Tuberville. So Tommy Tuberville won a Senate primary and a Senate seat without ever debating his opponent. He just is, he's a coach. People know him. I remember him because I was calling around at some point in the race saying, hey, I'm a campaign reporter. I've been covering the race. When can I come out? And his campaign was very, not rude, just honest, saying, we're winning. We're not really going to do any interviews or stuff like that. We're just going to like coast and win this thing. And Herschel Walker's been doing that. He's got all these Republican opponents warning this guy is going to make so many gaffes he can't win. And Republicans just put up with it because they're like, well, people know his name. He can beast it out. If this is like a +8 Republican year, you can make a lot of mistakes and win. I think you mentioned most of them. My favorite Walker oddity is he famously, the reason he was in the USFL is because he was allowed to, at that point, they could turn professional after a junior season, not a senior. So Walker pretty famously leaves this great college career to go to the USFL, and then claims many years later that he was this high school valedictorian, that he graduated top of his class in college, which is not a thing you do when you quit college. But we're so in this Trump crafted reality in Republican primaries where everyone's like, won't matter.
Yeah, you can just say stuff.
And they watched Warnock had what they thought was going to be fatal in 2020, which was this dispute with his wife, who, I don't want to say press charges, makes it publicly known that in a dispute that he backed over her foot with his car, and he's a senator now. So the idea that something's going to take Walker out that sounds bad, I feel like they've gotten over that.
Matt, any thoughts on Georgia?
It's funny, we got through both of those races without remembering that the opponent of Kemp or Purdue is going to be Stacey Abrams, which I think speaks to just how far her stock has plunged since she didn't get to be Brandon's VP. Because I don't think there's anybody. She's no longer I don't see the Democrats worshiping her or believing her she's going to deliver them Georgia anymore. Especially since that spell was broken in 2020 with Brandon winning and with the special elections. Mm-hmm. So I feel like she's not going to win, and nobody even seems to care. So I think she might be done for. Who knows?
Yeah, just going through the candidates here, it does seem like the median Republican candidate in this cycle is a former hedge fund executive who's been accused of domestic abuse. And the median Democratic candidate is somebody who has been somehow both in the national conversation among Democrats for a decade, but has lost 6 consecutive races.
Losers. The word you're looking for is losers.
Yes. So that's kind of where we are here. Stacey Abrams' stock is down. She is pulling behind either Kemp or Perdue. Most recently, she pivoted from doing, voter protection stuff, which she has, made a big place for herself in the Democratic Party.
Swing and a miss on that one.
To talking about how she's a businesswoman and has started many small businesses. So,
wonderful. That's always a sign of strength.
Turns.
She kind of infamously, when Biden came to Georgia to close the deal, that sounds sarcastic, but when he came to Georgia for his final rally before the Senate voting rights bill, she just wasn't there. And she never had a great "I had to be somewhere else" excuse. She just kind of like, "Yeah, I'm not there. You can probably figure out why." But yeah, she's running a different. Although she never has run as the far left candidate. She's always been. I'm pretty liberal, but I'm very good at describing how my life and my work fits within it's just like yours, and I'm not anti-business. And she's
but I mean, you're still chasing. You're chasing a conservative position, which is never. I don't know. It just doesn't seem to have a really strong track record. I mean, Claire McCaskill and people like that.
Yeah.
They go out blaming, leftists for smearing the brand of the Democratic Party. But all that really tells you is that specific strategy of running to the right in these states it cannot win as long as the Democratic Party is a national party.
Mm-hmm.
And the Claire McCaskills of the world, what they're demanding is impossible because it cannot be enforced. You're telling people who aren't members of the party, who aren't members of its electoral class, to think differently and act differently. How is that a fucking plan? How is that an electoral strategy? Which is the same one that people who are saying that young people should just stop being mad at Brandon are doing. Like, you actually have to be in charge of like like Pelosi complaining, "Oh, there's too much loose talk about socialism and abortion." Again, nothing they can do about that.
Yes.
They're literally saying we're in charge of this party, but we also cannot change anything about it. Well, then why the hell should you stay there?
Well, let's move on to Ohio because there's a lot to talk about in Ohio.
Oh, boy.
The main thing about Ohio right now is the shit show Republican primary. We've got Ohio Treasurer Josh Mandel. We've gone over this a bit, but just as a refresher, Ohio Treasurer Josh Mandel, State GOP Chair Jane Timken, an investment banker Mike Gibbons, and of course the G-Shucks Yaley JD Vance. I just want to quote this Time magazine report on a recent GOP debate. It was the greatest hits of the conservative fantasy last night on stage in Wilberforce, Ohio, as the Republican Senate candidates clashed in another debate. Topics for discussion: massive ballot harvesting operations in urban areas, jail time for Dr. Anthony Fauci, a defense of Reps Marjorie Taylor Greene and Madison Cawthorn, Hunter Biden's laptop and Joe Biden's family crime syndicate, a total deportation of immigrants in the country illegally, and the restoration of Donald Trump to the White House as quickly as possible. Dave, have you been to Ohio recently?
Yeah, I'll head back there. I was there only for a little while when Vance was rolling out his green endorsement. Not the biggest thing that happened in the race. And I was there last year for the Nina Turner Chantel Brown thing, getting a rematch. But it was hard to get a feel on things there, and it was hard until the Trump endorsement because you had a ton of in some ways flawed Republican candidates. The whole JD Vance theory, which I think is being borne out, is yes, I have said more bad things about Donald Trump, who I did not vote for in 2016, than any of these people, but I'm better at talking than they are. And that's been true. I mean, he's just better. He's more compelling. He's meaner, which I think is if you read a Hillbilly Elegy, I mean, I don't think it's inconsistent with the JD Vance of Hillbilly Elegy. I mean, so he's a kid who grew up with a chip on his shoulder. Yeah, it was his family was poor. He didn't know who to blame, and then as an adult, as a MAGA guy, he knows who to blame. He just adopted that.
Oh, I love though how he switched. He went from blaming his parents for being weak, and for having bad hillbilly blood, just being trash, to now it's the Democrats and China's fault for getting them all hooked on fentanyl
and Mexico and the Mexican border.
Yeah. We'll put in a clip of his most recent, "Hey, are you racist? So am I," ad.
Are you a racist? Do you hate Mexicans? The media calls us racist for wanting to build Trump's wall. They censor us, but it doesn't change the truth. Joe Biden's open border is killing Ohioans, with more illegal drugs and more Democrat voters pouring into this country.
I got to say, I marveled at his, we all marveled at how like phony and transparent his attempt to suck up to the people who he spent his career defaming in order to get head pats from Hollywood liberals. And he is inauthentic at it, but his opponents are all none of those are strong candidates. And the guy who sort of embodied like the authentic version of what Vance was going for, Mandel, is a fucking serial loser. The guy's run for every office in the state and gotten his ass kicked. So it's like there's no strong horse there to oppose him. And then what Vance has is the fact that he is, because he started off as the ultimate POC striver, and his initial like worldview is basically liberal, like it's these hillbillies' own fault. That is the liberal diagnosis for the problems he grew up with, and that's why they all liked him and they gave him a movie. He knows them inside and out, and he is one basically, and so he can speak in a way that gets under the skin of liberals, and that means that they talk about him and they get mad at him. And I don't think Trump necessarily notices anything that discreetly online, but you know who does? Don fucking Jr. Don Jr. is more online than anybody on earth. He's more hooked into the just dispiriting meme war between Democrats and Republicans. So he knows that Vance gets liberals pissed because he can push their buttons. The same way that the post left became like a phenomenon because on Twitter, because unlike MAGA people saying things that are just gibberish, this is like a critique from within in a way. And it just drives him crazy. And then Don Jr. sees that and he's like, hey, Dad, if you don't have anybody else you like in Ohio, how about J.D. Vance? And since there is nobody else for Trump to like instinctively pick, he goes, sure. And that means it's people like us who are responsible for this motherfucker actually going to probably win, which I think is honestly perfect. We were talking about how at least there's that like remaining, bullshit detector in humans to prevent a slug like JD Vance from sneaking in. And now that's gone too. And how could it last?
I started to put stock in him when he gives a speech at the NatCon conference. That's the post-liberals you're talking about. And his theme is that the left is led by people who have no children and therefore have no buy-in in the future, which is a very pilled new right argument, right? That is like Bronze Age mindset. That's a lot of these new things here. You saw it with this Tucker Carlson. Everything was memeing. It kind of came pre-memed, but Tucker Carlson promotional video about the end of men.
Oh yes,
that's where the testicular tanning.
Yeah, that's very online, and Don Jr. is very aware of that. And Vance, I mean, to the extent he came up with himself and the extent he adopted it, it's a mix. But that's the new stuff, and it's very clear when you're watching him in debate with guys who are just MAGA as of 2019 that they haven't done the new reading. They're using last year.
They're on the old script.
They're on the old sales. They don't have the good Glengarry leads. He's got the good Glengarry leads, which is the left is not just bad. They are perverts who don't have children and they're trying to turn your kid gay. That is a big undercurrent in a lot of this stuff. I mean, he referred to TikTok as the Chinese pedo app. And that is just, I think, really right inside the heads of a lot of Republican, not just elites, but some of the voters too. There is that I've seen this mindset that's powering a lot of the school protests, which is, these liberals are just they want to watch Disney movies and experiment with gender and they're ruining America because America is supposed to be a place where you can have a family and afford a house. And what Vance does successfully is say, also those things, which is, like he has a riff that I saw in the campaign trail where he talks about, BlackRock and investors buying up houses so they can rent them to people. And that's an issue I've heard, the left run on and with ideas. And his is like, I don't want my kid to grow up in the future where he's buying Chinese products and living in a house that he can't owned by a Chinese banker. And I'm like, well, that's a populism. There you go. You're connecting this to something real, and you're also really irritating the left in your spare time. Whereas like Mandel and these guys, I really can't stress Trump. I also watched these debates. The debates were just very revealing of who had juice and who didn't. And the guy who's just been giving speeches to not just, but Vance has been taken around the country, kind of drilled, got the whole Peter Thiel like mindset and makeover. And you get to be really good at talking and arguing, which I think he was already. And he's running against guys who were just very stuck on talking points and kind of stumbling around. When the Ukraine invasion happened, I mean, Vance was this is a little bit of tangent. Vance's statement on Ukraine initially was, he didn't care. Two, that we'd invested as Americans in a failed Ukrainian army. So he totally misses the boat on Zelensky mania. Even conservatives were saying, well, I wish we had a real president like Zelensky instead of Biden. But his opponents didn't really do anything with it because they're like, what's the talking point on this? well, Biden is weak and Ukraine is good, and he would just swoop in and say, yeah, my opponents are acting emotionally. They want World War III. Where I had the guts to say Ukraine doesn't matter, and the Mexican border does. I mean, he just outplayed them. I mean, there's some campaigns where like Herschel Walker is sleepwalking to victory. Vance actually did kind of have to hustle for it, and by pissing off liberals, as we were saying.
So all the candidates there were humping hard for the Trump endorsement. This is from NPR recounting TV ads. Josh Mandel's ad was Josh Mandel, pro-God, pro-gun, pro-Trump. Another was Jane Timken saying, there are pretenders in the Senate race. Jane Timken is the real Trump conservative. And Mike
so horny for President Trump.
Yeah, and Mike Gibbons saying, Trump and Gibbons are businessmen with a backbone. Trump saved our economy before. Gibbons knows how to do it again. None of them got the endorsement. Vance did get the endorsement. No new polling since then. But last time we checked, the RCP checked in on Ohio. Vance was in third place, fully 7 points behind Josh Mandel. You think, Dave, that's going to flip with the Trump endorsement, and Vance has a real shot at pulling off the primary, which is in just a matter of days.
Yeah, and early voting had been happening, but people weren't really taking advantage of it yet. This and we're going to Pennsylvania. These are both kind of like 2016 GOP primary all over again, where somebody with the right appeal of celebrity and like lib hating only needs to get like 30% to win, because no one else will get out. There's just all these. Mike Gibbons, this banker who's running, who led in the polls for a minute, is just incredibly wealthy and self-funding. And I've never been a billionaire investment banker, but I assume if you can buy like anything else, why would you say, well, yeah, I spent $20 million in this race, but I'm going to quit. Mandel, we discussed. Jane Timken, who is the chair of the Republican Party in Ohio, is just very programmed and has like jumped on every single message. It's effective that Vance has been just immigration. The Peter Thiel ads also bashing immigration. Whereas Timken was like, whatever was in the news, she didn't add, and it became just kind of a joke in every debate. I think at least 3 times per debate, she would just turn back question and saying, I'm a mom on a mission who will have the grit and the grace to deliver the MAGA agenda. And people are, whatever we think of the voter, like people have gotten conditioned to say, well, that one sounds like she's reading from talking points, whereas that guy sounds like me on Twitter. And like the me on Twitter guy, that's the way to go.
Yeah, people are looking for a mirror.
Yeah.
You got to be able to perform.
Well, just to touch on the Democratic side, in the Democratic primary for Senate, we have U.S. Rep. Tim Ryan, who you might remember from the presidential primaries.
Oh, yeah.
Roughly 1 billion years ago.
And he's the guy who thinks that you're going to reverse deindustrialization with like yoga studios. That's his deal, right? Like he's the yoga congressman, I think, like the wellness guy.
He's written twice as many books as Vance. He wrote one about wellness and one about a different kind of wellness, which was like healthy eating. But yeah.
And he is in a primary against Morgan Harper, a senior advisor for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. She's anti-monopolist. She's a Medicare for All supporter, a public transit investment supporter. She's pro-act, etc. Assume she does not have a chance here.
Not really. Ohio is going to be weird for progressives unless they get a lot of momentum, because you got Nina Turner's rematch and you have Harper running against Ryan. But like neither of them have figured out how to win over an electorate who's just like really panicked. And I mean, if you're an Ohio Democrat, everything's falling apart. You went from like winning to losing in like 5 years. So Ryan just raised a ton of money too for a guy who never mattered in the presidential. And he's run this. He's gotten attention with it. He's run this real what we think worked for Bill Clinton kind of campaign, where his first ad was just him saying the word China, I think like 12 times. But you go back to his campaign, they're like, yep, it works. Like we're in Ohio. We're not listening to the woke folks anymore. We're going to bash China. That is what people want. And Harper has not done that.
If people are panicking, he should tell them to breathe. Just breathe. Feel your body. Feel that you're inhabiting your body. Feel the space that you're in.
Yeah,
honestly,
not doing that as much.
We really are just getting different, prescriptions here that boil down to the same thing. Nothing can be done about any of the actual structures of dominance in your life. You have to look within. That's it. And it's just a different specific prescription depending on like the cultural valence, but the underlying premise is identical.
Well, it also sounds like if we do get both Vance and Ryan in there, we will, by the end of the general debates, have at least one candidate for Ohio Senate pledging to deploy the Ohio National Guard into Beijing or something. So, looking forward to the great Ohio-China War of 2023. But let's move on then to Pennsylvania, the Keystone State. This is maybe one of the better chances for a Dem flip. Right now, leading the Democratic primaries, we have John Fetterman. He's the big guy with the goatee, right?
He is very big, large goatee. He's less big than he used to be. He lost like 100 pounds, which on a guy I think he's 6'9". On a guy his size, you notice it, but he had room to spare.
So he has been leading the Democratic primaries. More recently, though, he has been come under attack from the other candidates over a shotgun kerfuffle. Apparently, when he was mayor of Braddock, Pennsylvania in 2013, Fetterman used a shotgun to did not fire, but, threatened with a shotgun to detain an unarmed black jogger, claiming that Fetterman had heard shots in the area and then just chased off after this guy with a shotgun who was running near his house. This is becoming a bit of an issue and digging his points a little bit in the primary, but it seems like he's going to withstand that and go on. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, that story has been used against him in every time he's kind of got momentum, which is not that often. So he ran for Senate in 16. He got kind of owned, but it was the same time as Bernie, so he got a lot of that juice. And then 2018 he runs for lieutenant governor, and that's when they really try this. Like, he's not that popular with a lot of Pittsburgh activists. If you know many Pittsburgh leftists, he has pissed a lot of people off. The thing that really pissed him off originally was he's not for stopping fracking, and wouldn't go along with the line on that.
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, they knew this was coming, and it's been used either by Malcolm Kenyatta, who's this black state rep from Philly, who used to be friendly with Fetterman, or Connor Lamb, who's a white guy from a rich part of the Pittsburgh area. So both of these guys have been running around in the debates talking about how Fetterman did this, and the problem I think for them is their argument is that, like, we can't win the election with a guy who did this, and
Mm-hmm.
It is not clear that the swing voter is gonna look at that, especially now. Like, there are Democrats, I think, who look at this and say, "Boy, wouldn't it be great if our candidate had chased down a jogger with a gun? Then we would go on air and say, I support law enforcement. In fact, I've even dabbled in it." And it has not been dragging him down at all. And then with Lamb, just they had a theory that you could win all these local party endorsements and all this support from your Democratic clubs, and he is. I've covered them both. He's like a more affable, backslapping guy than Fetterman, and it just hasn't really worked because Democrats are so scared that they think, well, the guy with the goatee who people think is a wrestler, I think can convince my MAGA friend, but the guy who's just like a Democratic congressman, I don't think is going to do it. It's like a very electability panicky argument that has helped the Bernie guy, which is unexpected.
It's interesting to me that even though Lamb and Kenyatta, those guys have absolutely been getting blown out in polling for months now by Fetterman, that there's not been any pressure on them to drop out and stop their negative campaign against the presumptive Senate nominee in order to band together to defeat the Republican. It seems weird that there is no institutional pressure being put on these guys for by the fact they're still running these negative ads trying to remind people about Fetterman's incident with the shotgun after it's very clear they're not going to win. Wouldn't the party, if it was really as interested as it claims in electability and it is beating Republicans and saving democracy, wouldn't they do something? It's almost as like there's like a civil war going on in the party, not so much between anything ideological sides, because that was determined by the 2020 election, but rather by patronage networks. Like the thing with Fetterman, the reason that they're still going to try to cut his knees out, even though he's got the nomination clinched at this point, is because he's not in the right circles. He doesn't pay the right people. I guess he is not like a flaming leftist, and his image polls well. Like, he is not. There's nothing that is a poison pill about him to the electorate. That's obvious. That's not something that any of them really believe. They're just trying to prevent this specific guy from getting in the Senate, and I can't understand why, other than he's not part of the team.
Yeah, and it's not many people who agree with that. That Lamb has not found a lot of people willing to join him in bringing Fetterman down. The PAC didn't raise a ton. I mean, it raised more than $1 million, but not enough to kill a candidate who's raised a lot more than that. And then also, Politico had a pretty good story after this PAC started attacking Fetterman, where they just went around the Senate asking Democrats, and the reaction was basically, he should take that down. Can we not? Like, we don't need this right now. Just no attitude in favor of let's have like a messy fight inside the family to help hurt one candidate who we think is fine and can win. And I think a lot of it runs through this panic, like, oh, we thought 2020 was going to be a sweep and it wasn't, so now we're scared of the electorate. We're like, why would we do anything to screw up what is already going to be really hard? But yeah, you did not see Democrats rallying around and panicking the way they did with other Bernie candidates and saying this guy must be stopped. It just didn't happen with Fetterman.
Well, let's move on to the Republican side. This is kind of a mirror of the Ohio Republican primaries, because you basically have the meme candidate versus another hedge fund guy. And that is Dr. Oz making a play to become a MAGA guy versus Dave McCormick, who is the hedge fund guy. The key issues here, as of the last debate, were fracking. Oz was once against it for health reasons and now says, frack, baby, frack. In a heated debate recently, Oz was complaining to the moderator, notably, about the other candidates claiming multiple times, she's not following the rules. I follow the rules. Ooh. And then the moderator threatened to mute microphones over a barrage of crossfire.
That's some nerd shit, man. That's embarrassing. That's some real Democrat shit.
But Oz got the Trump endorsement, which you pointed out, Matt, must be or could partially be to blame of just TV celeb guy solidarity.
There is that. He's another guy from the TV, and therefore he thinks of him as Trump thinks of him as more of an equal than these political insects that he has to deal with. But I think there's also a real calculus for electoral success here, because, as I said, Trump wants people who like him and kiss his ass and affirm his version of reality, but he also wants people who will win, because he feels like he is lost if a guy that he endorses loses, and so he always has to create an ex post facto explanation for why he didn't actually endorse them and they didn't technically lose. But he would like to avoid that if possible. So he's not just picking Oz because another famous guy. He does have a theory for the case as to why he's the best candidate, and he said the Philly suburbs, very important, a lot of votes there. Dr. Oz has been on the televisions of Philadelphia suburban housewives for 20 years. That's goodwill that's been built up, and that's going to make them want to vote for him. And I got to say, that's as good a calculus for trying to figure out how to to win that seat as I can imagine one being.
Before the endorsement, RCP polling had McCormick up 4.2 points over Oz. Dave, do you think Oz can make up the difference with the Trump endorsement?
I'm going to start to say that with the Ohio thing. I mean, he doesn't need to convince half of the Republicans. He needs to convince 28%. I mean, I won't go through every candidate in the race, but it's another one where just no one has gotten out, and it's complicated things. I was at a conservative conference in Pennsylvania to cover the race and talk to some of the candidates, and Oz was there. Like, they did a straw poll. These are like the hardcore right-wing activists in the state. Like, half the panels are about critical race theory. And he lost the straw poll there. And it's one of those examples of straw polls is only one thing. Because the winner was this woman, Kathy Barnett, who's like a election integrity. Let's just use that euphemism now. Integrity activist, who natural Republicans know nothing about. She won. But Oz had real, conservatives who just see him in the room were not that impressed. But it is going to be a lot of those people who just turn out. They're MAGA guys. Maybe they're suburban Republicans. And they're like, well, him, sure. Because this other guy, Dave McCormick, has spent all his money just trying to do like a Glenn Youngkin speed run. Like, very, very quickly go in there and say, I also have a vest. I also am very rich. I have every conservative position that you guys have. Like, he ran a Super Bowl ad that was just people chanting, let's go Brandon, for example. There you go. What else do you guys want from me? And I think it was effective, and this screwed it up. Like, he was really trying to not get Trump to endorse Dr. Oz. Yeah, I think Oz has a pretty good shot. And that's why, when there's reason Democrats think, all right, tough year, but big wrestling-looking guy actually from PA versus Dr. Oz, who moved back to the state to run for Senate. We think we got something there.
I will say that I like this because it is a battle of two different actual responses to the reality of American politics now. Mm-hmm. You generally only have one. Usually it's a Republican, because the Democrats can't face reality and keep having to vote for people who deny reality. Here you got a guy who he doesn't have celebrity in the traditional sense, but he goes against the images. He embraces the semiotics of a Republican. And that is a response to conditions, and you can see if it's effective or not. We'll find out.
We will. Biden won Pennsylvania by just 1.2%. So this is going to be a very close race. If it does come down to Fetterman and Oz, one to watch going forward. Any predictions, or would you guys like to move on?
I'm not trying to predict anything.
Yeah, I love not predicting.
That's for real sickos.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm normal.
Well, we'll leave you, the listeners, with just the facts there. Let's move on to one that's not maybe as contested of a state, but one that I find very interesting. Missouri, the show me state. I wanted to bring this up because the Democratic primaries just got upturned by Trudy Bush Valentine, the daughter of beer baron August Gussie Bush. She just entered the race recently, pushing out the other leading Dem, Scott Sifton, and then immediately had to apologize for being crowned Queen of Love and Beauty at the Veiled Prophet Ball, 1977.
Awkward.
If you've not been following the Veiled Prophet thing, it's the local white elite cotillion there that is cloaked in the mystical majesty of the lost cause.
Yes, originally created to celebrate. As a celebration by the city's elite for crushing the 1977 St. Louis General Strike.
Yes. So
Ellie Kemper from The Office and Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, also Queen of Love and Beauty at one of those.
Trudy Bush Valentine enters the race, pushing out the other leading Dem candidate. The other Dem still in that race is Lucas Kuntz, a Democratic favorite type, which is a former Marine progressive. He's an anti-monopoly guy. He calls for a, quote, Marshall Plan for the Midwest, which sounds cool and funny to me. Do you know anything about the Missouri primaries, Dave?
That guy Lucas had a very good press team that introduced him as a path breaking candidate. But you're right, this is the kind of candidate we've seen a lot of. I mean, every Democratic midterm where there's a Republican president, they find 50 really compelling veterans who have a couple of good issues. He's one of those guys. But this was kind of off the map. The way Democrats see this is if Eric Greitens is the Republican nominee, then they should have somebody who can win. And they thought maybe him, maybe Bush Valentine. How would I put this? I mean, they're kind of clapping for this race without really expecting it to win. It's like the fourth quarter and they're down by 30 and they're like, the team looked pretty good tonight. Bad luck. But without Greitens, they're kind of going to ignore this race. If it's, Vicky Hartzler, the Republican congresswoman who Josh Hawley's endorsed, I point her out because she's one of the innovators in running against transgender people. She had two ads about one about Leah Thomas, the UPenn swimmer, and then one almost inevitably about being canceled for having run that ad and not allowed to run it. That's what the social conservatives folks are back. If you thought that Trump winning meant that those guys were gone, no, they're very much back, and that's a state where everybody who's switched over from being a conservative Democrat to Republican, they're all in for that. So you might have a very right-wing Republican candidate, more right-wing than could ever have won the state, in 2000, versus a Democrat who's got money and is pretty good, and it's just not going to matter.
This is going to see the how far the bounds of uncancelability on the Republican Party are, because if Eric Greitens can get back in the Senate after what he was accused of and essentially admitted to doing, it'd be pretty insane.
Which was
because
just to fill the listener in.
He was the raping governor, basically,
yes,
and he had to step down because of that. And now, with only more accusations having piled up since then, he's now going to try to be a senator. Do you think he's got a chance?
If he wins the primary, I think he has a chance. I mean, Republicans just it's a good year, and they've learned just the base is if you turn this into I was attacked unfairly by the same people who tried to bring Trump down. You got their attention. Greitens got. I mean, he came in with elite because people knew what he was. I mean, he was one of the few candidates I saw.
The raping governor.
That's why they. But
no such thing as bad publicity anymore. Swear to God.
Absolutely, and he's been kind of staying put or fading as other people spent the money. But I mean, he was one of the few guys who went out there and showed up at the trucker convoy. That made me wonder. Okay, you can't be that confident if you're going to a trucker convoy and saying "I stand with you," and everyone else is busy campaigning elsewhere. He needed to attach his battery to some other source of conservative power. Right. I don't think he really found it.
Well, as of Political Report recently, as even more allegations against Greitens come out, his internal polling is showing him fading against Hartzler. So We will see how this all comes out. Bush Valentine is worth an estimated over $250 million. So obviously can sink a lot of money into this. But Dave seems to be undervaluing the Democratic chances in picking up Missouri.
It's a tough one, folks.
Going to kind of speed round down through these. Also, a potential flip, Nevada, where we have first-termer Catherine Cortez Masto up for re-election against former Attorney General Adam Laxalt.
It's also
Laxalt.
Nevada. All of those people.
Is that Paul? Is he related to Paul Laxalt?
He is the illegitimate son of a different senator who was raised by Paul Laxalt. No, really.
What?
That's his origin story.
I'm glad I asked. That's amazing. Paul Laxalt, for those who don't know, was one of the first real Reagan Republicans. He's a senator from Nevada, and was one of the people who ran his AD campaign. And he raised the illegitimate son of another senator who is now running for Senate. That's amazing.
What is the bastard name in Nevada?
Sam,
maybe
right?
I was going to go Chips. Yes,
Chips.
Exactly. So Adam Chips, now Adam Laxalt, lost his his race for governor in 2018, but Biden won the state by just around 2% in 2020. The question is going to be about turnout. I find this one interesting because we have lost, of course, Harry Reid, the long-term master of the Democratic machine in Nevada. So I guess the interesting question here is how well that machine survives the death of its master.
Yeah, I was mentioning Nevada before because it is tough. Where look at it this way: it's the only state that voted well to the left of the country if you look at the presidential vote, 7 points for Biden. Nevada was way to the left of the country. If you look at the presidential vote in 2020, 12 years later, it's pretty far to the right of the country. I mean, Nevada has been moving far right because of all these, you're like a working class guy. You can move there. It's cheap. There's an industry that doesn't require a bunch of degrees you can get into. And those people have just been walking away from the Democrats. They held on to what they had, but their theory of how to win the state has been in challenge. And this is one of those kind of a theme this year is can they hold on despite that, because Republicans nominate very right-wing candidates. And that's kind of their hope. That Laxalt, who's I think most famous in this race for more than a year before the election, saying he's ready to sue for irregularities when they try to steal it from him. He's also got a primary challenger who's a veteran whose face was disfigured in combat and has raised a ton of money based on that, but probably going to be the nominee. And it's really it's kind of like every vote's going to go the same, going to go down, or none of them are. If Democrats screw out of their tailspin in Nevada, they should be fine. But that's when I remember sitting down the governor in Nevada a couple months ago, and he was one of the most open about how, Joe Biden's not really popular. Also, he's pretty old. That's not a state where they're counting on Biden to pull him out. They're we got to do something else here.
All right, well, let's move on quickly to get the rest of these in. Back to Wisconsin, America's Dairyland. Got to touch on this just because we have, of course, the preeminent Wisconsinite political thinker on the pod, Matt Christman. Senator Ron Johnson is up for re-election in a state Biden barely won. Biden's approval is now underwater there, as with everywhere else. And on the Dem side, we're looking at Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes and Alex Lasry, who is the son of the Milwaukee Bucks owner. So, a good old hometown
he
dynasty.
He seems to me like a mirror image of the Missouri Queen of Love and Beauty.
Yes.
Where it's just the failed child of a wealthy family who feels kind of guilty about it and decides to just jump into the political field because they're going to help. They're going to help out. And aren't they adorable doing so?
And as I mentioned up top, with that news piece about the school board elections in Wisconsin, maybe the GOP strategy is not as strong as it looks here. What do we think? Does Wisconsin stay just barely blue, or is Ron Johnson back in this year?
He's the favorite. Matt knows more Wisconsin than I do, but
not at this point. I really don't. But that guy. Oof. Honestly, I like him less than Joseph McCarthy in terms of historic Wisconsin senators. Just because Joe McCarthy had he had a feral glint in his eye, he was going for something. This guy, he's just he's just a room temperature IQ shithead. He is just the embodiment of the worst Wisconsin traits, except that he doesn't have type 2 diabetes to my knowledge. And the fact that he beat my childhood favorite senator, Russ Feingold, and has been holding his seat ever since. And the fact that he's just going to stay there forever, it's very disheartening. My cousin is friends with his son, his like one of his kids, and he went to his wedding and everything, and he went to their house once, and they literally have in their big hideous McMansion a TV with Fox News on it with the volume up in every room.
That's wild. I just can't imagine hearing the parallax stereo of walking from room to room, just hearing it fade out and immediately fade back in. Moving on, just to get these few in because we are going along here. I'm going to skip Alabama because the only news there is Mo Brooks, getting the Trump endorsement and getting it rescinded, which we've already gone over.
It is a little interesting though. Why did he flop so bad? Is he just a real obnoxious motherfucker?
Trump's theory is that Brooks showed up at a Trump rally and started basically. It's like that Kids in the Hall sketch where like the actress accepts an award and thanks Hitler by accident. He basically started doing that, not thanking Hitler, but he went up there and said, basically, look, I know 2020 was you had some questions, put it behind you, we got to win, and he just got these lusty boos for saying put it behind you. He says, or don't, but we need to win. And so it was this very minor moment, but every time you cross Trump, all your opponents are like, well, my opponent didn't even say that he thinks we can overturn the election still. And that kind of chipped away, but it's mostly he's not good at raising money. He's a classic kind of Freedom Caucus, Tea Party congressman who just votes against spending at all times, doesn't have a lot of friends. And
he's just a dumbass. Like, that's the thing. Like, the ones of these guys who succeed are the ones who have an authentic American stupidity to them to, appeal to voters, but also, are to an extent playing a part, knowing what works and moving towards it and playing that up. Guys like Brooks, and I honestly think Sarah Palin's in this bucket too,
we'll get to her in a second.
Dumb. They're just stupid and like they're there because circumstances allowed them to be. But any attempt to like grasp the brass ring and do anything beyond like the first level of difficulty, getting out of like tutorial mode, they just can't hack it. They can't do the things you need to do. And then even a Trump endorsement isn't enough. And then he has to take it back from you because you're just a sticky little baby and you can't do it.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened. And you had the senator who's retiring, Richard Shelby, really liked his former chief of staff, Katie Britt, who just anyway, it's not that hard, honestly. I mean, I haven't done it, but it's not that hard to be a former moderate Republican or, mainstream, whatever that means, Republican, because mainstream is now MAGA. And then just say, I'm MAGA now. And so she's run ads about immigration, all that. And then you had one of the guys, the Black Hawk Down fighters, if you remember,
yes,
that
Mark Durant.
real thing and the movie. Mike Durant got in and just has a bunch of money. So you're watching Brooks kind of suck wind as two people with a lot of money and charisma gained. And Trump just said, yeah, enough with this guy.
Let's move on to Arizona, the last Senate contest that we're going to highlight here. Astronaut Mark Kelly is up. Biden's approval rating obviously plummeting as everywhere, but Kelly is seen as more of a moderate, more palatable to the Arizonans, and certainly probably drafting a bit from being the normal one, standing next to Kirsten Sinema. Republicans are duking it out in a primary featuring Attorney General Brnovich, venture capital exec Blake Masters, and solar energy company owner Jim Lehman. Like most other GOP primaries, all three of these guys are now in a race to jack off Trump the hardest, including Brnovich, notably flip-flopping, first denying election fraud and now saying there are, quote, questions about the election. Do we think Kelly has a chance to hold on in Arizona?
Of all the Democrats we mentioned, probably the best chance because Blake Masters is another very online guy, but he doesn't have Ron Howard making a movie about his life. He just is one of these Peter Thiel acolytes who went to work for him and made a lot of money, and just does video ads where he really, conservative operatives love him. I mean, he just says what they think, which is like, oh, the country's being run by psychopaths. The transgender stuff's out of control. But it's not really, he doesn't really have a normative message. It's just that I'm saying the conservative things, and then Brnovich not raising any money. Masters also not raised much money. So look, Democrats dropped a lot of races in 20 where they had a ton of money. I mean, what's his name? Jimmy Harrison. They let him lead the party after this. But this is one where Kelly is probably going to keep trying to distinguish what he does from Biden and take advantage of opponents being kind of weak. So I think he has the fundamentals to do way better than other Democrats, despite how red Arizona can be. Like, either random Peter Thiel guy or mediocre attorney general. Like, guys like that can win, but it's more of a mismatch than some of these other places.
Well, let's move on in the last few minutes we have to some fun ones. Alaska, the last frontier. Notable story here. Sarah Palin is back in the news, running for the state representative position. I believe there's only one state rep
just
out
the
of
one.
Alaska.
R.I.P. Don Young.
Is this notable, or is Palin still a sideshow?
It's notable. I need to stop myself because the Arizona ballot system is new and complicated. But basically, there's one big primary ballot with every candidate. The top 4 candidates go to a November ballot, and then when voters get that ballot in November, they rank them 1 to 4 until somebody has 50%. So it's incredibly complicated. The idea is like, well, this is a big state. We have a lot of independents, third parties actually do pretty good there. We're going to open it up so that maybe somebody can crack through. Actually not, this usually ends up locking the 2 parties in place, but whatever. She's going to run that system, and any Republican, even as unpopular as she has been in Alaska, pretty good chance in that system. But I'd say like generic Republican Steve would probably be 100% sure thing bet to win, and she's got people didn't like that she just quit to become a celebrity like 10 minutes after the presidential election. Like that really did eat away at people in a way that everyone forgot it outside, as they call the rest of America. But in Alaska, it was like, yeah, that lady who quit went on Fox a lot. I mean, she's not been that popular.
I will use this excuse to mention my one interaction with the Palin family back in 1,000 previous lives when I used to work for a TV network in their reality television development division. I once had to serve Levi Palin as he was pitching a reality show to them. And the main thing I remember about interacting with Levi Palin is could not form a sentence and was wearing the most complicated jeans I had ever seen a person wear.
The complicated jeans?
Yes. The kind of
He
jeans
never took the family name. He was, to my knowledge. That would have been funny if he had, though.
All right. Moving on to my last little bit here. Under a headline that I have as More Trouble in MAGA Land. Both Marjorie Taylor Greene and Madison Cawthorn are now facing primary challenges, and I will quote from one Dave Weigel in the Washington Post, reporting on this in the trailer. This is a quote from Jennifer Strahan, a healthcare consultant challenging Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Quote, if people are so busy critiquing everything you say and not willing to actually hear you because you don't have a message that resonates, then it's distracting from really bringing results back to the district. The main point here seemed to be that there is a minor backlash to these guys just being super online and yelling on Twitter or TikTok or wherever they are, a small but genuine dissatisfaction with just being the kind of celebrity representative. Do we think that these challenges to these notable MAGA representatives will go anywhere?
They're big long shots. The Cawthorn one is a little more serious because you've got they're both serious. They're both serious people challenging them, but you have a very funny situation where Cawthorn announced he was going to move to a safer seat, and then they redrew the map so that seat didn't exist. So he moved back to his old seat. And literally had a fundraiser scheduled called Welcome Home Madison that they canceled because they realized that sounded bad. But and also he's just a guy. He's 27 at this point, but he just was a politics guy who wanted to be powerful, and now he is. Whereas Green, I think, just she represents a MAGA constituency that I think is pretty powerful. Is the yoga? Well, we've mentioned yoga a lot. Is the CrossFit woman who made it on her own as a business, all that stuff. Like she is less relevant in Congress than Cawthorn, but has made in that district, I think, fewer enemies. But both of them are right in line with the Trump style of politics. Is if you want to piss off liberals because they drive you crazy, look how good I am at it. I mean, that's why I think Cawthorn might just be so incompetent that Republicans can be convinced to vote for somebody else because they're not running as vote for them and I will vote for me instead of Cawthorn or Green and I will team up with Mitt Romney. They're all running as MAGA conservatives, and they're just like, wouldn't it be great if we had a MAGA person who was not ineffective getting made fun of all the time? So do they convince people actually when they're getting made fun of it's bad? Because that's not where they're at right now.
No, they like it. Yeah. I think that's going to be tough.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of getting made fun of and pissing off liberals, let's move to my last item here, which is the Dem opponent for Lauren Boebert. This is Alex Walker, who made waves on Twitter last week for posting intentionally obnoxious TikToks, basically calling leftists whiny, entitled bitches for not getting on board with the platform of suck it up and believe in nothing?
I love when people are like,
you have a moderate policy, you lost my vote.
Oh, what vote was that? Was that the vote you were going to give to some Bernie wannabe whose overkill policies are unpopular with 75% of voters, just so you could feel good about yourself until they lose the general election, at which point you'll point your finger and blame someone else? That vote? Oh, honey, your vote got lost a long time ago. Democrats need to wake up. Jesus, in order to legislate, we have to win. Go to walkerforcolorado.com and stop complaining.
Dave, you recently wrote about Alex Walker. What is your take on this strategy?
Yeah, I teamed up with Taylor Lorenz, who did the interview with him. We were both on that beat of the. This is a new-ish thing. Like the last 6 years, you can run as the make people angry candidate and raise millions of dollars and not win. I mean, like conservatives did this forever, that have direct mail firms that just like spammed your grandpa and grandma's mailboxes and said, this is the candidate who could fight the liberal fascists. Same thing with online money. But these are happening in races where the party in November is just giving up. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Democrats aren't competing there. They're not competing against Cawthorn. Their only hope is in the primary, somebody beats them. So these guys are just vacuuming money for no reason. And you could tell there's some annoyance among, I could say, elite liberals on this. I mean, Crooked Media had this whole Ditch Mitch campaign in 2020, like a site where you give money and you split it between other candidates, in part because they didn't want people to just keep giving to Amy McGrath to like set money on fire for a race they couldn't win. So these guys are going to, I think, suck up millions of dollars and not win is their story. That's different than the primary challenger to Cawthorn, this guy Chuck Edwards, like could maybe get into runoff and maybe beat him, but no Democrat's going to beat him.
Matt, I almost hesitate to throw this question to you just because I don't want to, give this guy air for us dastardly Bernard brothers, making fun of him. But do you have a take on the liberal attempt at the pissing people off via the internet scheme?
As Dave said, it's very effective at making money. It's can't necessarily win you an election, although, as I say, it really does show the radical asymmetry really in the two parties and their dynamic relationship to their base and how that relates to the electoral prospects. J.D. Vance can needle liberals until he amuses the Trump family enough to win a primary for a toss-up Senate seat that will then go probably towards the Republican because of the year it is. This guy can probably make a bunch of money and maybe get a nomination where there is no chance of the Democrat winning. That's the only place where that kind of approach can get any traction, is where the party itself isn't just like squatting over the electoral territory, which is true of anywhere that's remotely for grabs. So all they can ever do is just suck money and attention, and he's doing it, and God bless him. He'll probably do it forever. He'll never stop. I hope he never stops. I hope he continues doing TikToks. I hope he starts doing cameos. I hope he starts OnlyFans. I love him.
Well, that brings me to the end of my outline. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your insights. I guess I will just flip it to you guys. Any final thoughts about the state of these elections? Any races I might have missed covering? Anything that you want to touch on before we sign off?
I'd say it's the most important election of our lifetime. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. No, I mean, you laid it out pretty well. I'd say find out what district you live in, because that's weird now. That's going to be new. And just there's going to be a bunch of stuff that pops on the map because people are so angry. So don't look at any outcome as crazy. I think if people 6 months ago were like, J.D. Vance, yeah, don't be like that.
We were doing that. Now we're on.
Don't do that. Be ready for insanity, because we're going to get some.
Anything from you, Matt?
To the polls. Let's Pokemon Go to those polls, folks. It's very important. It might not be important, but in certain countries you can bet on it, so it's still fun.
Well, that will include the first installment of the Beltway Phoenix. Hopefully, once we get a little further and these elections go from the primaries to the generals, maybe we will reconvene this panel to discuss what the situation is looking up closer towards November. But until then, I do have one plug that I'm just going to get in real quick. Maybe you've seen from online if you follow these things, but Chapo Trap House is playing a music festival this summer. That's right. We are reteaming with our friends from the Frequency Festival to the actual IRL festival they put on every year outside of Portland. It is called Pickathon. We will be playing on August 6th at the Pickathon Music Festival. You can go to pickathon.com to pick up tickets there. A lot of great bands playing there. I mean, Built to Spill, come on. I hope they play Dystopian Dream Girl at that show. Gorilla Toss will be there. Love them. A bunch of other great acts. And you'll get to see us in a fun outdoor setting. I've been told that Pickathon is one of the best festivals in the country. And as a fest head myself, I'm very excited to be going there. I know, Matt, you are very excited to be playing a festival as well.
Absolutely. I want to soak in those vibes.
Great. So that is August 6th at the Pickathon Music Festival. That's pickathon.com to pick up your tickets. We will also be doing a frequency live stream of the set, which we will have information on how you can buy tickets to just watch online, do your own little Couchcella if you want to watch our set there. We'll have more information about that coming up. Dave, of course, you are in Washington Post. You have the trailer. Anything specifically you would like to plug?
No, we have a relaxing the paywall sometimes. If you hate paywalls, come to us because there are pretty good odds that we're going to have it down that day. You can read all of our politics content.
I will also take this chance to plug Dave's great book on progressive rock, The Show That Never Ends. We've covered it on Introducing. A good read if you like reading about the history of prog rock, which I do as well. So buy that too. I know you're way out of book cycle, but take a look at that. Until then, thanks for listening. Keep your eyes on the polls. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye.